Hello and welcome to another episode of Building Minnesota RØKKR. I am Ashley, aka Midnight Director Content here for Minnesota RØKKR and Version 1, obviously. And then I've got Brett Diamond, the usual suspect, joining me. Brett, how the heck you doing? It's another duo podcast. I like doing those. Just kind of a time to catch up, shoot the shit, talk about like the current happenings, obviously within the company, and then obviously there's some huge news today that 100 Thieves is obviously entering CDL under LA Thieves. So I want to talk to you about that, see where RØKKR off season's shaking out, and just the hype that we have for Cold War. So Brett, how you doing? How's it
I'm
going?
doing well. I'm doing well. It's going to be 79 degrees in Minnesota today.
Oh,
So
I'm so
of
excited.
all the signs of the apocalypse that we've had in 2020, this is one that I can probably get on board with. I think we're gonna, we got 70 degree plus for a couple days, and we'll have some snow. Be back to normal Minnesota quasi winter, but yeah, it's looking good so far.
Yeah, I'm super stoked about the weather. I've been trying to spend a lot of time, like more time on calls, like, outside if I can. And after this podcast, I'm gonna go enjoy some of the. I think this is our last good weather until the end of winter, I would assume. And so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But speaking of good weather, you know where has good weather all the time? Los Angeles.
Los Angeles,
You
it
know
certainly does.
what has happened is I mean, from just the outsider perspective, 100 Thieves joins CDL not as an additional team, but it seems they're taking over that LA slot from OGLA. Brett, talk me through like what the hell just happened? How did this happen? As much as we know, obviously it's not like we have a super ton of huge intel, but just what is from our perspective, another team in the league. What does this mean for
Yeah.
CDL?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's awesome news for CDL fans, for us as an organization. Look, any team, any league, yes, nice. Um, it's awesome news for us as an organization, for CDL, for the fans. You know, what you want is the biggest brands and the strongest brands as a part of the league.
Mm-hmm.
And that is good for the league and good for the growth of the league long term. And you can't possibly argue that 100 Thieves and now the LA Thieves are not an amazing brand. And you know what? I'm pumped for us to get a chance to play against them. I'm pumped for us to, to to have them as a part of the league, to bring their tradition and their history in the COD scene to what's already in CDL. And like they're gonna all of us, every team in the league will raise our game as a part of this, and I think it's awesome. From a it's funny, we talked a little bit about this when Arda was on last week. In a lot of cases, fans sort of assume that like we know everything magically, right? And the reality is in a lot of in a lot of these cases, we're learning some things as they come, just like fans are. From the initial like report that came out several weeks ago that there was going to be some movement with one of the LA teams. Everybody looked at that immediately and said, okay, like LA Thieves is sort of a logical conclusion that you come to when those stories started last month. But for most of us in the organization, we're just looking at it just like most of the fans are, right? Like, okay, it seems like there's going to be an LA slot available. That seems like the logical conclusion. But we're not in the boardroom with Nate Schott and John Robinson and, the people they're talking to. Like you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So I'm actually super interested. Like eventually, I'm sure a lot of those things come out, and I'm sure the people involved will talk about those things at some point. And I'm interested in hearing those stories when they do, just from a almost from a fan perspective, right? But at the end of the day, like this is how it should be, right? LA Thieves, 100 Thieves as an organization, as a part of Call of Duty esports. It's awesome. What do you think? You've been in the scene a lot longer than I have.
I'm fucking hyped, bro. Oh, sorry, I swore. I'm freaking hyped though. That's how excited I am. This is great news, bro. Like this is awesome. Obviously, my time at Optic Gaming back in the day, Me and Nate Shot were a part of the same organization for such a long time. He, eventually ended up kind of leaving, starting 100 Thieves, doing his thing. Obviously, I ended up leaving and doing this, and it's such a good thing to have Matt and Nate Shot, the whole 100 Thieves organization, like back in the fold. I know it was a pain point last year for them when they had to announce like, hey, we're out of Call of Duty, and it's not what we want right now. And I would be super interested to know like kind of how what led to that decision, because I know at the time they kind of cited like wanting to keep the 100 Thieves branding like very, very much on the team names that they're entering esports into, which totally makes sense to me from a brand building, point of view. Like, yeah, we look at 100 Thieves, especially me, like the content that they do. I look at them as like that upper echelon of team. But they're still new, kinda. Like they're really not that old of an organization if you look at it, and it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do in such a short period of time. And obviously they have great, financial investment backing. I think they might have even cited that as a reason as to why they just didn't want to buy into CDL in that way, because they would have had to maybe sacrifice that branding. But I thought it back then, and I think it now. LA Thieves is a dope name. It's right on brand, right? And they're already based in LA. It makes sense. I guess I'm really interested to kind of see like how does this shake out. Like you have OGLA, who is like, I mean, I guess I could say this because I was a part of the old Optic. Like, just it was not gonna work out. Like I knew that before, they discovered that it's not going to work out, long term from a brand building perspective for that squad. But I'm just curious to know, like looking at it now, Brett, and obviously you and I don't have like the back door, the intel, like you said, we're not in the boardroom with Nate Shot and the key people at 100 Thieves making these decisions. But what happens? Like, who's their roster? Do they just absorb everything and everyone that Optic Gaming had from a CDL perspective? Like, I'm just curious about like how do they staff for it, or are they already staffed for it? Is it just kind of they take over and they cut out who they don't want? I'm just kind of curious from a business angle. How does this kind of 100 Thieves, LA Thieves takeover of the LA CDL slot, like what does that mean? And especially for like you think of those players, like what does that mean for them? Are they with 100 Thieves now?
Yeah, so I think we can talk about that in a couple of ways, right? What I'll avoid is any speculation that of like things that we don't know.
Yeah, we don't.
So first, they did announce some things today that Kenny Slasher are part of the roster. I believe they said that Draza, I think they in their tweet they said he's a sub. Mud Dog's the GM, so like clearly they're absorbing a lot of that. The way it sort of, if you zoom out, and when there's no, in a typical situation when a sports team is transacted, right? So like now I'm not talking about 100 Thieves here particularly, but in general, like when a sports team is when any franchise is sold. And it varies a little bit league to league, but generally speaking, the new ownership absorbs whatever is already in place. So player contracts, staff, GM, coach contracts, whatever contract it's like when any business is sold, really, the new owners now own all those contractual elements, right? And then from there, the new owners decide, okay, do we want to continue with things as they are? Do we make different decisions, etc.? Obviously, in the case of 100 Thieves, a lot of that roster, the GM, they were part of 100 Thieves, in CWL. So, that's a very natural fit, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And clearly they've announced that today that, that those players and Mud Dog are part of LA Thieves. So clearly they've embraced that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I thought at the time when Mud Dog left 100 Thieves, because he wanted to stay in Call of Duty, right? Like that's why he wanted to move to OGLA, was because he's just so ingrained in Call of Duty, and he sees that for his future being the GM of that squad. I'm really happy for him to like be able, because I'm sure it didn't feel awesome, right, to have to leave 100 Thieves, and now to have that opportunity to come back, I think is really awesome. I'm really glad it happened at this time. I guess like from your perspective, it's better if something were to shake up like it is right now with the kind of a swap of a team. Like where does Optic go? What do those rumors mean? What's the long term like implications of that? We don't know. But is it better in your opinion that this is happening now rather than in like year 5 of the league, or is it give the first year or two some instability from an outside perspective?
No, I think it's good. 100 Thieves as a part of CDL is how it should be, right? And it took a year to get there for considerations that are far that I am not privy to, and that's totally fine. But 100 Thieves is part of CDL. It's how it should be. And you want an organization like that is producing killer content, has an amazing brand, has these rock star personalities. You want that in your league. You just do. In general, you want in a league, you want stability, and you want brands and teams and ownership groups that are part of growing the league long term. But there's no question in my mind that Call of Duty League is stronger today than it was yesterday, and this is an awesome thing for everybody involved.
1000%, bro. I'm so excited. Fake Optic out, LA Thieves in. I'm sorry, I'm just hype about it. I'm just excited. I'm selfishly excited about that, bro. I'm so excited. I think their branding is pretty cool. I'd want to know like how long. And like I said, I'm with you that I'm wanting to understand like how did this happen, and I'm sure we'll hear about it. Like I wonder how quick of a turn it was to come up with their branding. I think it's pretty on brand. It's got that street apparel brand kind of vibe that 100 Thieves already kind of has. And I definitely agree, with the personalities that you have on 100 Thieves, how they've been handling their team internally, and really how fast they've grown in really such a short period of time. It's super inspiring, especially for if you try to like kind of turn it back, towards like the angle of like building Minnesota RØKKR, building a sustainable esports team organization. Like, how do you, I don't know, I look at them as like that's what you aim for. You try to get to that point where you're able to bring on these killer content creators and really have a strong voice online. And I think the fact that it is Nadeshot, this prolific X Games gold medalist, Call of Duty champion, rejoining his where he started. I think it's a great story. I think it makes sense. I think if it was another team, or if it was another situation of like some other ownership group like kind of bowing out and a new one coming in, I would look at that and be like, ooh, in year 1 that's weird for the league, but for this it just feels right. So I think that's a really important distinction to make.
Yeah, that's 100% right. That every situation's unique every time, and again in any sport, when you've got teams changing hands, ownership groups, investing and changing investments, it's always going to be unique. But like this is awesome.
I'm hype. I'm excited to see what they do. Now we have they go hard, dude. Like 100 Thieves, they want.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone in the league. I feel like just going back to kind of like some of the things we touch on this podcast before is like this league is so damn competitive. Every angle of it too, not just the competitions that happen, on event weekends. It's everything about it I look at as a competition. It's content. Who has the best social content? Who has the best video content? What are the teams doing outside of just signing the players and playing the games and hoping that they win? It's such a competitive industry and literally a whole league that we have that I'm just, when you see a great presence coming in like 100 Thieves and with LA Thieves, I think it just makes me more excited. And I do believe that the rising tides raises, all ships, right? It just helps this whole thing.
And that's a really important perspective to it, because there's some things where, it's easy to look at it and say, okay, today, I wouldn't be surprised if today they pass us in social media followers, right? And like we talk internally and we talk with potential sponsors, how we're excited that we're 4th in social media followers in CDL, and the only ones in front of us are, our Huntsman, FaZe, Empire, these iconic brands. And so we're excited to be number 4. And so, you know what? Probably today we're going to drop to 5 because, like, I haven't looked at what their numbers are at so far, but my guess is they will skyrocket, right? Because that's the 100 Thieves brand. You know, and will there be times where we're pitching sponsors and they go to 100 Thieves or LA Thieves instead of coming to us? Like, will that probably happen? Probably at some point. You know, are there fans that, hopefully fans will support both teams. But at the end of the day, like, it's good for the league. It's good for, we want to have matches against the LA Thieves that are going to draw a ton of eyeballs, right? Like, that's what you want. In the NFL, teams get excited when they have home games against the Dallas Cowboys, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Because those are big time brands that you want to match up with, that you want to play against. And at the end of the day, it's a rising tide lifts all boats is the right way to look at it. And, they produce amazing content. That's a great, I think we produce amazing content, and it's a great standard for us to look at and say, let's do what they do.
Do what they do, but with our little flavor, dude. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I could do.
We're the Gary V scrappy style.
We're a little more like, frick it, let's do it live. Like, let's go, let's post stuff, let's get out there. But I do think, I mean, they've just done a lot right in the scene, even just outside of like Call of Duty. If you look at the strides that they've been able to make with the content, the content creators they were able to sign. Like 3 years ago, it was Nadeshot trying to figure it out, and then he gets this investment backing and they start hiring the right people around him, and they've been able to just really crush that. But from especially someone who's gone from the like literally the content creator role to influencer role to like this now on the other side of the business is not easy, and to start from zero like he did a few years ago, I think it's just so impressive what he's been able to do. And I look at it similarly as what we're trying to apply with our company, right? Like, we have amazing ownership in the Will family and minority owner Gary V, right? Like, they've instilled a lot of confidence and belief in what we're doing here. And it's, I think, I'm not saying tomorrow we're going to be 100 Thieves, but it gives you something to strive for, and competition breeds excellence, especially in terms of a league. And I think them putting out great content makes us want to put out, I mean, we want to put out great content anyway, but it's inspiring when the teams around you are doing great things as well. And I think that's really important. So I'm excited about content. I'm excited about RØKKR content, particularly this year. Obviously, we have a new lineup from last year. We've got Priesta, Major Maniac, Attach, Accuracy. Incredible dudes. There seem to be much more content focused than the guys on our last roster, which I don't, it's a balance thing in esports, right? Like, obviously competition is number one. You need to be prepared on game day to execute and win. Like, winning helps making a lot of the content easier, right? But when you have, great on-camera personalities like we do on our team now, I think that it just makes it all the better. So I'm excited to do a ton of cool stuff with this roster. I'm excited, about kind of the developments in the off season. Can we talk a little bit about something? Well, we're going to be creating content around this and kind of explaining it, but this might be a good kind of touch point to intro it. Obviously, Brett, in the past, we've wanted the roster of the players to live in Minnesota. Like, if you're going to go out on game day with Minnesota on your chest, like, you need to be here and be about it. Obviously, wasn't expecting a global pandemic to hit. I don't think anyone was, and that's changed our plans a little bit. And we've allowed the players to kind of live, remotely wherever they'd like. And it's not only our team that's doing this, but you see many other players in the CDL actually moving to the Dallas area. So talk a bit about, Brett, kind of what's the plan there? What are we doing? Where are our players going to be? Are we going to be able to see the guys as much since they're not in Minnesota? I can kind of answer that question, but just kick us off of where are the guys and why?
Yeah, so the starting players, so the 4 guys are going to live in Dallas this year. Some of them, they're basically all moving within like the first 2 weeks of November. So some of them have already moved. The others will be down there shortly. So, as you said, Ashley, we've talked a lot over the past year, and some of it on this podcast. We've talked a lot over the past year about the importance of having the players, have roots in Minnesota and be a part of this community. And that is still the long-term plan, right?
Yeah.
In 2022, our players will live in Minnesota. That will be back to, sort of that as the starting point. But for this year, we wanted to be more flexible for a number of reasons. Obviously, global pandemic, crazy world of 2020. Interestingly, when we went through free agency, almost every major free agent target that we talked to wanted to live in the Dallas area. And it shows just how competitive these guys are, that like they're looking for any possible edge. And the perception out there is that by living in Dallas, you have access to the best possible internet that you just don't have in every city. And frankly, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's the analogy I use is, if you're playing hockey and somebody thinks that their skates are not tied too tight, or like a football player thinks their cleats are getting stuck in the grass, like whether it's true or not, that's their perception. And so, as the team, you want to fix it. So they felt like they would have the best possible internet living in the Dallas area. And proximities to servers is, that's an obvious thing where you're looking at the map and saying, okay, we're this far from this server and that far. So for that reason, it seemed like a lot of players, particularly free agents, were looking to live in the Dallas area. I don't know how many teams are ending up there. At one point, it sounded like it could be as many as 5 or 6 that could just naturally end up with their players living there. And again, I'm not talking about like bubble or any of that stuff. That's just like, that's where the guys are living.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so we got the guys living there. We've hired a name that many in the COD community are familiar with, Joe Fries. We brought on board, official first day was November 1st. So, videographer that's done a lot of work in the COD scene, and I think the Halo scene before that. Was with Empire last year, was with Evil Geniuses prior to that. Great guy, awesome dude.
We have to have him on, dude.
We should.
I think we're gonna have the coaches. We're gonna have the coaches on next week to get nerdy and talk about Cold War release and like the next season and getting all tightened up. But I cannot. I mean, obviously, I'm very biased towards content. I cannot express enough how amazing the hire for us of Joe Fries is. I think he's incredible. He's got deep roots in this community, similar to me. I've already had a few like at length conversations with him just about like the goals we have, what we want to do, what we're trying to accomplish, the style or how we kind of achieve those things. So I see in the chat we're like, yeah, RØKKR content will continue to grow. Like you'll get there, and with this edition, we're well on our way to getting there. He's gonna be amazing for the team, and not only that, did we get a little lucky because obviously all the guys, they want to move to Dallas to have the best like competitive advantage. Like obviously the biggest competitive thing is being able to play on land, but with the global pandemic and just the environment, we do not know if that is going to be a thing or not, especially like right away in CDL. Like maybe cool, there's a vaccine that comes out and we can all start going to events again and having a good time. Please, fingers crossed. I need some normalcy back. But in the meantime, we don't know. Maybe it's going to be online. So the guys, it makes sense that a majority of CDL players want to move down there, not necessarily to do a whole bubble, but to just have that competitive, like as much competitive integrity as you can. And, when I heard about that, I was like, at first I was like, man, that makes it so tough to make content with them, obviously, because, I mean, there's definitely some remote things you can do, and I have a lot of plans as far as it comes to that, but it was nice having, the last RØKKR roster just going into HQ for work and seeing them there before the pandemic hit. But, luckily Joe Fries is currently living in Dallas because he was just with Dallas Empire, and he's, super excited to have that touch point with the players. We're going to be doing a lot of content with the players. We've got some big plans of how we're going to kind of execute those things, and having him like literally boots on the ground down in Texas while the guys are living down there temporarily couldn't be better news. So I'm glad to share that news with you guys here on the podcast. We're super stoked about the future of, RØKKR as a whole. Even some bigger things, Brett, with, the parent company that we have and are under. We obviously have version 1, who's the Rocket League team. And we had I know this is not the Building version 1 podcast, but we just had like a little Rocket League roster mania session. So that kept us kind of busy and entertained, and just, we've got a lot of cool shit that we're about to do, or cool stuff. Sorry, dang, that's 2 swears this podcast. Jeez, get it together.
You're so hyped, Ashley. You just can't.
I know.
You can't contain it.
And it's live, so I can't beep it. I'm sorry. but yeah, I think like I'm just so excited for the future. Whether it's the Rocket League winter split is starting soon. The Call of Duty season, I believe, isn't starting until early 2021. But Cold War's coming out in God, what day is it? The 6th. It's in 1 week. Call of Duty comes out in 1 week. Wow, time is happening so fast. So yeah, I'm just so excited about like just that game launch, the content we'll be able to do around that, kind of getting that first look at some of these rosters. Not only that, you have the league downsizing rosters sizes from 5v5 to 4v4. And if we thought last year was competitive, first season of CDL was mad competitive, it's going to be, I think, twice as crazy this year. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I'm so psyched for the season. It just can't get here fast enough, right? And part of it is just that quick turn from champs right into roster mania into we've done a ton of tournaments over the last month. Been working with the players to get them set up, and they're moving to Dallas. They're going to be settled in their new place. Yeah, it's funny. When you think about what we're trying to accomplish with content in the pandemic, right? I think what we're setting up for is a good insight for listeners and for fans into what we're about as an organization, right? Like we're going to make the very best of whatever situation is in front of us. And that's something that, you and I talked about, now I keep saying a year ago, but well over a year ago when it was just the 2 of us, and then it was the 2 of us plus Annie. And it was, okay, we didn't have the most resources in the world, but we were going to make content and, make the very most out of what we had to work with. And that's something that we said to the staff the last meeting that we all had together, when it became clear that like everyone's going to have to work from home for a while. And we didn't know at that point whether it was going to be, a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, what probably looks like a year. Right. But what we're, hiring somebody like Joe Fries is about continuing to build our content capabilities, bring the right people into the organization. The fact that he's living in Dallas and can do things hands-on with the players, in a safe environment, like that's what we're about, right? There's like no excuses. Like pandemic, yep. Like, go figure it out.
One thing
like,
that we don't do,
we're not hitting pause. We're going.
We don't just mail it in ever. We try to do, no matter what circumstances we've found ourselves in, we've always been kind of scrappy and just trying to be, you doing stuff like this. Like, I love the fact that we do this podcast and kind of keep people up to date with the inner workings. So yeah, I'm excited for the new season. I'm excited for all the content. I'm excited to just keep doing this thing. You guys, I mean, can I give I'm gonna do it. I was gonna ask permission, but I'm just gonna do it. This podcast is gonna be awesome next year. That's all I'm gonna say. Is awesome now.
It's going to evolve.
But it's going to evolve, and I'm very excited. Like, it's gonna evolve like a Pokemon, real quick, real flashy, real nice, and I'm really excited about that. So that's all I'll tease with. We're excited about the future of the Minnesota RØKKR podcast. So yeah, I'm stoked. I love seeing the chat. I love people talking in the chat.
Should we take some questions?
Yeah,
what do you think?
We got like 5 minutes for questions. So if you have a question in the chat, definitely hit us. If you're listening on a podcast app, not live, I'm sorry. Hang out. We'll. I hope you've had an enjoyable time listening so far. I think subscribing to the podcast wherever you're listening is really awesome. Give it a rating. Chat likes the Pokemon reference. There we go. Although I'm more of a Yu-Gi-Oh person. Don't hate me. I said it on Twitter yesterday. I was trying to get out of this election headspace on Twitter that everything's got going on, and I saw a tweet that said Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, and I finally found a new thing to argue with people about. So I'm definitely Yu-Gi-Oh.
There was some. We're not going to turn this into a politics podcast, though. There are some times that I think that'd be fun. This probably isn't one of those times.
Yes, that is not how this podcast will evolve.
But you had to love the stop the count memes that were going on.
Oh, did
right?
you seen the RØKKR one?
Wherever you sit on the political spectrum, like you had to enjoy the stop the count memes. I saw the one from us and the Huntsman, the Full Sail. That was painful.
That hurt my feelings.
I'm not sure. And tell me what you think. Was that more or less painful? Did you see the one that was stop the count and it was the scoreboard of the NFC Championship game,
Oh yeah.
Vikings versus Eagles from a few years ago,
Yep.
of the Vikings up 7-0.
Yeah, there was a lot of hurt from Minnesota angle of the memes that I saw
Mhm.
yesterday, or even
Mhm.
I saw a meme today of someone made a political point, and then someone that I follow like just put a picture of the Blair Walsh kind of, before he kicks it, and they put the angle going wide left, to say that he missed. And I was like, man, that's messed up. Cause why is it got to be on us all the time? Uh, dang. Now the chat's going politics. I think this is where we end it. I think this is where.
My view of the chat is delayed here. I gotta pull it. I gotta pull it
uh,
back up.
nah,
Did
it's
we just
mostly
open
good. No,
Pandora's box?
yeah, a little bit. That's okay. Hey, it's the best escape for me right now is focusing on, Call of Duty comes out next week. The cool content we want to make around RØKKR, not only RØKKR, but obviously V1, Rocket League, the new split starting up. Want to put a lot more emphasis into content around that team as well. So it's a good time to be a gamer. If 2020's taught me anything, is that a lot of it's a crap show, but 2020 is a good time to be a gamer. Frag out in the chat asks, how do you guys plan to take RØKKR's content to the next level? What steps are you taking this year, other than adding people to the roster? For me, I mean, it's a little bit of what I just mentioned, right? It's obviously we do a lot of content here, right? And it's always for me like internally like a quality versus quantity back and forth, right? Of like, well, do we want to do as many things as possible, or do we want to do like the very best things possible? And I do think it's possible to find that medium, right? Like, so you are very active. We want to be very transparent. We want to continue doing that, but we also want to up our game a little bit. We want to keep going with shows like Saga, because I think that those are important to do to tell the story of our team. We want to get our guys playing together pretty frequently. We want to get in the mix, make sure that we're creating things around them that's not just, okay, they scrimmed tonight, that was cool. Like, we want to highlight that, but we also want to highlight the great personalities that we have on our team to help connect the fans to, the guys, really. So I'm excited to keep doing that. We did a little bit of it last year. I think the pandemic kind of did put a wrench in some of the plans we had, but the future's looking bright. Like I said, I couldn't be more excited to have Joe Fries on the staff to help, like I said, boots on the ground in Texas. So yeah, I'm excited about that. That's gonna help a ton. And really just like for me, it's having him down there to be able to be the literal like hands-on shooting, and audio, like everything we need for the videos, but making sure that we establish like a schedule, like, hey guys, like this week there's a crazy new Warzone update, like let's make a piece around that. Here's who I need. Like, it's just putting more of an emphasis on content within the team as well. So super stoked. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Ashley, I have a question for you. This
Yeah.
is an important question. And you said it earlier. How good does it feel to be able to say fake optic?
Very good. I've been saying it the whole time.
Yeah, I feel like you were censoring yourself a little bit.
Yeah, fake optic out. All right. Listen, I don't know what's going to go on with all that. I don't know what all this means, but I do know that there is not a team in CDL currently that has the optic name that is not Hector Rodriguez. And that makes me feel good, right? That makes me feel good and it's not even that like I had animosity or anything towards Immortals. I think they're trying to do their thing with the asset that they purchased. But if it were me and I was them, I would not have called my team Optic when you're not Optic. That's just like my opinion, man. I don't know. That's what I think on it. I'm excited to kind of see like all the rumors out there, how they kind of formulate over time and where everything lands. But I think that if this is the first part of the direction we're heading, is kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning, 100 Thieves or LA Thieves joining CDL, that's a pretty good indicator that things are shaping up and going the right way. So, yeah, it was weird for me to see like the Optic logo that I had literally worn and represented for 9 years, you know. And I look at that team, and it's not that they didn't have good staff. I'm like, it's Mud Dog working for them. Like, I love him. They're doing some good stuff. I just thought, like, from a branding perspective, I was like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how I always looked at it. Is like, I don't understand why they want to keep that name but not the soul.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you and I talked a little bit about this probably a year ago, or when you were first coming on board. Like, I was curious how it would work out just purely from a business perspective, right? And I didn't have the long, the the true like emotional understanding of what it meant for the Optic brand to to be existing outside of Hector, that obviously you did, but just observing it. It was very interesting to at the time look at that, and clearly, as an organization, they were making placing a bet, right? That
Yeah.
like that the
They
level of just the level that the Optic brand was at, and the number of social media followers, and the number of fans, could withstand whatever negativity would come from the divorce with Hector. And that I'm sure, like, I'm not going to speak to what might have influenced them to part ways with the Slaughter or get out of CDL. Like that, I'm sure there were many factors that go far beyond just like, did the Optic brand resonate over the past year, right? It's not just about that, I'm sure. But it is interesting to to watch how these things develop. And across the league, every team is facing different different situations, different challenges, different decisions when it comes to how to build an organization, how to build your brand. And no two situations are alike. But it's really interesting to to observe and learn from what everybody in the league is doing, which is another reason why I think it's awesome to have the LA Thieves as the newest addition, because I'm sure that there is a lot that we as an organization can learn from 100 Thieves, and can emulate of the things that have made them great, as we constantly look to build our organization and level up over time.
Yeah, I think that's the case. It definitely was weird to see, the Optic name continue. I think they did, I don't want to speak for Immortals at all, but it seems to me their vibe was that yes, it was going to be not good at first, but they'd eventually be able to retain some of the fans and then create a bunch of new fans, of the team. And they have great players, right? They had, great players with great personalities on that team, but it was pretty clear to me and apparently them that it just wasn't working, and it's okay to kind of just say, oh well, we tried. I thought it was a really interesting way for them to try to do it, and it just kind of proves to me that what is most important with some of these bigger brands and teams, and what captivates people's interest, isn't just the logo on the screen. It's much more. It's the stories you're able to tell, it's the content you're able to do, it's the people that you have, either whether they're working for the organization or playing for it. It's all a part of it, right? You can't just take something familiar and run with it. So, I don't know, man. I think that's a great way to end the podcast, dude. I think, have some really genuine excitement about 100 Thieves joining, or I guess it's LA Thieves. Well, I'll call it LA Thieves officially now. LA Thieves joining CDL. So that's very exciting day. Super happy for Matt, and even like obviously Courage. Like him and I were on Optic for a time together creating content. Like just super happy to see him kind of get to return to his COD roots in a way. And just happy for all the whole, like I said, rising tides, all boats, all that stuff. I'm excited to in 1 week the new COD's coming out. So I'm excited to talk to the coaches next week. We're going to have them on next week to kind of talk, like, obviously there's no scrims or anything like happening yet, but just want to get their perspective on how they see the Cold War or Call of Duty League Season 2 shaping out. So thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you guys listening or watching. If you're watching, hello, there's a wave. If you're listening, we do this live on YouTube. So the RØKKR YouTube, check us out. The link will be down wherever you're listening to this at. And if you're listening on like iTunes, Spotify, or whatever, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can hear our lovely takes every week. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe as well. There's so many viewers that just watch and don't subscribe. So subscribe if you want. Like, no pressure, but like, let's just make it official, right? Let's make sure you see all the videos that keep coming out. So, Brett, any kind of final words, or just say bye? Say what's up?
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for
Watching.
listening. Thanks for listening.